Well, since the last video on the Super Reverb, I had a growing suspicion that something was failing in the output and that only one half of the output was really working. And I continued playing after I stopped the previous video, and the problem just kept getting worse and worse. And it wasn't the bad speakers that you heard in the previous video, and it wasn't the bad reverb tank / cables that you heard in the previous video, though those are real and don't help. But it was just like I was just getting square wave stuff. And when you've been doing this a while, that tells you that your class AB amp is not. Only one swing is really working. It's either pushing or it's pulling, but it's not doing both. So I went through the phase inverter area and the plate resistors. And there's a whole bunch of wax here, and I got all that off, and I cleaned everything up, and I cleaned out the tube sockets, and did a whole bunch of stuff that wasn't, strictly speaking, necessary, I found out, but it certainly doesn't hurt, and I made sure the negative feedback wasn't contributing. The issue was this amp came with all these international, what are they called? International Service Master C tubes, and it had two 12AT7s, one for V3, one for V6. And when I first powered up the amp this morning to do the other stuff, everything was fine. And I swapped the tubes back and forth when I noticed this problem, and there was no difference between swapping the tubes. And what I was getting with the Service Masters in here, we've got 407 volts here, 408. I was getting 4 volts less. I was getting 404 volts here, and I was getting about 150 volts here. And that's a huge discrepancy. With this JAN Philips 12AT7, I have a much more proper 222 volts, 202 volts. This is a 20 volt difference. That's much more what you would expect. But with this JAN Philips, it's microphonic. So I'm going to pull that out and put in this RCA 12AT7 in the phase inverter and see how it is as far as microphonics go and what its voltages look like. And I'm going to stick temporarily that JAN, just a second, it's hard to get this lined up upside down, in the reverb driver. It's a brand new, to me, new old stock tube. I'll return this to the vendor. I'm on good terms with that vendor, and they understand such things, and I'll get one that isn't microphonic. A little bit of microphonics on this old RCA too. Not as bad. But let's see what the voltages are with this RCA. We were at 220 and 200. 223, 224. All right, well, the voltages with the JAN were a little bit better than the voltages with the RCA. It tells me that one of the triodes on that RCA is a little bit weak. So this amp needs two new 12AT7s, but that noise there was when I touched that JAN in the reverb driver. Isn't that fun? So needs two new 12AT7s, and I got to deal with the reverb tank and cables and get all those connections cleaned and tightened, make sure all that's good, or get a new tank or cables. And the amp really needs new speakers. But let's see what this sounds like now that I think the output should be fully functional, even if the reverb driver tube, it's got a little bit of weirdness that comes and goes. So let me find the other end of this guitar cable. Story of my life. All right. I've got so many wires and cables. Let's see here. What are you guys looking at? I just set this and forgot about it. So let me set this so you can see the knobs, I guess. All right, so set these flat, bright off. Should have a lot more output and everything should be cleaner now because of the length of the lav mic cable, because my extension cable for it died, became noisy. I'm tethered very, very close to the amp with the tripod where it is, which means that the pickups are very close to the transformer. So listen past that. All right, we had a snafu with the position of the reverb tank. It was picking up noise, and I was clipping the mic pre because I had pushed the wrong button. One of those days, man. I'm going to unplug the lav mic so I can physically move farther from the amp so that the pickups aren't a foot from the power transformer. This thing, let's put it right under 4 on the volume. So 4, 7, 5, 4.5, 3 on the reverb. Master volume on 10. Let's see what this sounds like. Trying to get one of those Jocko things. Well, the amp is tremendously louder, sounds tremendously healthier, and all but a small amount of that background buzz is gone. And I think what that is the tubes that I have in there now are not perfectly matched. Less imperfectly matched than the ones that were in here that were so mismatched that one was taking all the current and wanting to run away with it. So earlier in the previous video, I said this amp needed new power tubes, needed to fix the reverb tank and cable connections and or replace those, and it needs new speakers. And I stand by all that, but there was a grunt quality to things, and it was getting worse as I played after I stopped recording before. And now with that gone, this thing is, let's put it on 2 and 4, and it's just sounding pretty. In the previous video, I said, is it vintage or just old? It was just old earlier, but it's getting a little bit closer to the V word now. I think the owner will be happy to hear that.